Bienvenidos, Ushamdi, and welcome to this Hut8 networking tutorial on basic installation and configuration tasks for your Cisco ASA firewall. In this module, module number 10, we're going to take our first look at the AnyConnect Secure Remote Access VPN solution. So in module 9, we spoke about the clientless remote access VPN, where you can have a client or an individual for your company who's on the road, who all they need is a web browser that supports SSL, and they'll be able to connect in and gain accesses, albeit via those web-enabled bookmarks that we were working with. And so then that raises the question, well, okay, well, how do I then go ahead and connect in if I want to have my node appear as if it is on the local network? Well, for that, we're going to use the AnyConnect Remote Access VPN. Well, we've got some caveats, just like anything related to Cisco. There's going to be some caveats here. And so let's talk about the differences between the client-based remote connectivity and the client-less remote VPN solution. So with AnyConnect, we have to have a client, and we'll talk about there's two distinct packages. There's going to be a web deployment package, and then there's going to be a pre-deployment package. And we need to make sure, we need to make sure we get the right image loaded onto our firewall. That way it can be used later on. So client software is going to be required. So whether you allow your users to get it over the web interface, or you as the administrator, or you as, the individual as your firewall at your house, you load it on there, it's got to have client software in order to work. Now, you can download both of those packages at www.cisco.com. All you really need to do is Google Cisco AnyConnect Secure Mobility Client Download. It's going to take you there. But again, remember, I'm almost certain you may not need an entitlement to download the software. It's been a while since I've downloaded the software, but you may not need an entitlement to download it, because again, the app in the Apple, what am I trying to say? The iTunes store is actually, for the App Store, sorry, in the App Store, it's actually free. So you may not need an entitlement. So check that out. And again, this is a significant drawback. You've got to install it, you got to configure it, you got to deploy it, you got to get it on to the end user nodes in some form or fashion in order to be able to use AnyConnect. Now, the easiest installation between, a MacBook or a MacBook Pro or an iMac, whatever the case may be, it's so easy to do on iDevices. And when we go in to use it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, it's free on the App Store. We already mentioned that. And your node's going to appear as if it's on the local network. In other words, you're going to have access via SSH, via Telnet, via ping, whatever the case may be. However you're configured, your iPad or whatever device it is that you're using the AnyConnect client on is going to behave as if it's on the network segment that you dictate that it's going to be on, or that you configure it to be on. So let's pull up our ASDM here, and we're simply going to go right back to our wizards. So I come to the VPN wizard, and there is the AnyConnect VPN wizard. And this is extremely straightforward. So this just gives me an introduction. We're going to put in a profile. I'm going to say AnyConnect VPN. Again, we want it to be the outside interface on where this is configured. We don't want IPsec, or we don't need IPsec. We're going to go ahead and use SSL. And again, remember, when we talked about IPsec, one of the differences is it's sort of considered it's an always-on type thing. So we're fine with SSL. We don't have a certificate, and I'm going to show you when I get to, I don't know if it shows in the browser here, but it definitely shows on the MacBook, or I mean on the iPad, where it comes up, and by default, it's not going to trust a server that does not have a signed signed certificate, device certificate from a certificate authority. So let's go ahead and click next. And here is the image that we're going to use. Now, this is critical because this is a common mistake. When you go to download on the Cisco webpage, you'll see AnyConnect Mac OS, and I'm going to use just the latest and greatest here, 4501044, web deploy, or you'll see pre-deploy. The difference is that web deploy is a package. Pre-deploy ends in .dmg, right? Ends in .dmg. So the package that you want to load here is the web deployment, because again, this is going to be if users don't have a pre-deployment package. In other words, if they haven't had the AnyConnect Secure Remote Access client installed on their node, on their laptop, or whatever the case may be, this is the package that installs it, and you're going to get to it via the web interface, and that's why it says web deploy there. So we click next. You can see we've got some usernames here. We'll stick with the local accounts that we have. We talked about this exactly the same as it was with the clientless version. Now the address pool, and this is very, very different. So I'm going to click new, and I'm just going to say prod pool, because it's going to put me on the inside network. We'll say 192.168.1. I can't remember the range that we were using, so let's just say 1, and I think it was 150. So I'll just say 130, and then 192.168.1.135. So we'll just use 5. And again, you want to be careful here. If you got a lot of people coming in, you're going to need more than 5 addresses. So I'm just going to leave it with 5 addresses. And again, we're a /24 on that inside interface, which is actually 10.0.0, 10.0.0.135. I was thinking 192 was stuck on my brain there. So that's the prod pool that we're going to use. The DNS server, sure, we can go ahead and put in 8.8.8.8.8. The Win server, we'll leave that blank. Now, NAT exemption, it says if network address translation is enabled on the ASA, and it is, right? Because we have, we're natting from the inside to the actually doing PAT, port address translation. It says the VPN traffic must be exempt from that translation. So yeah, we're doing NAT, so we're going to exempt it. We're going to do it, exempt it on the inside interface, and it's for v4. And then that's it. It basically tells you, hey, here's how you can get the AnyConnect client. You can either web launch it, which is the web deploy package, or you can pre-deploy, which would be the pre-deploy.dmg image. And then we say next and finish, and that's it. And we've got it enabled there, and let's now go ahead. And you can see enable Cisco AnyConnect VPN client access on the interfaces selected in the table below. I don't need DTLS on, right? It says it offers better performance. Are you sure you want to disable it? So you don't need it on, so I'll click no. But just to show you that you don't need to have, all you need is SSL access on that outside interface. Again, if you had a certificate, you could do that. You could play with ports. But we are set up here. So now all I need to do is let's pull that MacBook up. Now, a quick note as to what's going to happen here with this MacBook. It's extremely old, and I know for a fact that the Java, when we go to do the web deploy, the Java is going to bomb out. So with this MacBook, I'm going to be able to walk you up to the point where you would do the installation. I have a package on here installed already, but it is a much older version as well. So I'm going to click login, and of course you see right away your Java version is out of date. So we'll just move on here. Now, this MacBook is old and it's slow, and what's going to happen is there's going to be some pop-ups that come up here eventually. Here's the first one, and the security warning is going to come up at some point. There's an ActiveX check as well if you're on the Windows platform, but we're basically looking at Java right now. And here we go. I'm going to say, sure, continue. The certificate's not valid. That was one of the warnings. There's a bunch that you're going to get. I accept the risk, run it. And ultimately, I believe what it's going to say is, yeah, so this version of the AnyConnect Secure Mobility Client is only for 10.9 and later. If you look at my MacBook here, unfortunately, that's as far as it's going to go. Where's that? 10.7.5. That's as far as it's going to go. So what would happen here is you could click on the AnyConnect VPN. It would download the client for you if it bombed out on your Java for whatever reason. And it's the AnyConnect client is there, right? But when I go to install it, it's going to give me that same error message. It's going to say that, hey, you need Mac OS X 10.9 or newer. Now, the good news is I've already installed that package, that AnyConnect package on here. So if I go to Applications and Cisco, you can see here is the AnyConnect Secure Mobility Client. And again, from October 2015, so we've got 2 years ago. So if I double click on this, after you did the install, this is what you would get. And it would come up to right here, and it would say VPN ready to connect. And I would say, go ahead and connect. You can see I've got 209.165.254. It's the outside IP address on the firewall. And I say connect anyway because I'm allowing connections to unsecure devices and ABC123. I click OK. And again, it's not going to be able to get the connection because this version of the AnyConnect client is way out of date, right? Extremely out of date here. So, but that is all you would need to do to connect. And so now we're going to kind of pick up where it's going to work, right? So we walk through the 2 different methods, the web deployment method, and then here I've got a pre-deployment. I already had the .dmg file. I did the install and everything was there. So we're good to go. And now we're going to transition over to my iPad. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, wait a second, how is that iPad actually connected? Well, and I'm looking for my drawing pencil here. So here's how the iPad is connected. And I know this is going to look a little bizarre. So it's not connected to the Wi-Fi network, right? So here's my iPad, and we'll do the little wireless signal there. And here's my iPhone. And the iPhone has no Wi-Fi on. It's hotspotted. So we're going out to the Verizon network. So the iPad is using the iPhone, which is hotspotted, for its connectivity, which takes it out to the Verizon network, the 4G LTE network, which is then going to loop around. And we're actually going to use the ASA on my network, the ASA that I actually use. That connects directly into my Verizon Business Fios line. And it's going to bring us around to the ASA, right? So kind of a roundabout way of doing it, but it's going to work. And we're going to prove that we're actually going out that Verizon network in a couple different fashions here. So let me go ahead and display that iPad to the screen. And I need QuickTime in order to do that. Where's my QuickTime? It may already be up here. There we go. So there is my Hut8 iPad, and this is the iPad that we're going to use to demo. So the first thing we're going to show, right, let's baseline. So here's a little ping program. So can I ping 8.8.8.8? I can. And you're probably saying, well, if you were connected to your Wi-Fi at your house, that would work too. And you're right, it would, but take a look, right? This works. If I stop it and I come back up here and I back up, and I say ping 192.168. Now remember, this device is not connected. I'm going to prove to you right now. This proves it is not connected to my local network. That is the inside IP address of the ASA firewall in my home network here. And that is not working, right? So even though you see up here at the top, even though you see that is just simply saying that, you know, I've got a wireless connection, but it is to the hotspotted iPhone that is not on the home network. It's 4G LTE only, which is why the ping here to the local network is not going to work. And there's an INE ad right there popping up. So let's get rid of that if that goes away. So we'll say stop. All right, so we've shown that this isn't working, right? At least to the local network, because I'm not VPN'd into the local network. So let's change that. All you have to do to get the AnyConnect app, which you see right here, right? The second app from the left, is go to the App Store and download the app. It's free. You would create your profile, right? You give it a connection name, and then you would type in the details, right? You know, the IP address, the outside IP. And this is where, again, consideration. If you've got DHCP being used on the outside interface of your ASA, well, then you got to be careful, because if that address changes, you need to know it changes. Then you've got to be able to figure out what did it change to. So static IP makes it much easier. But This is how simple it is. You download the app from the App Store, you install the app, you go ahead and create the connection, and then you simply slide this top button up here. You see where it's going green and now it's spinning. And here we go, untrusted server. Now, let me cancel here. If I was to go to settings, and you can see the second option right there, block untrusted servers, it's off. By default, that was on. When you first install it, it's on. So if I went to connect, we're going to get a nice big red, and there it is, just perfect timing. Untrusted server, it's either going to force me to change the settings or it's going to keep me safe. So I know it's my firewall, so I'm going to disable that. So here's what would happen again. I go to connect. Remember, I'm coming from the Verizon network into my house on this iPad. And I'm going to click continue. Before I click continue, though, and the Wall Street Journal has just sent me an update. Before I click continue, I'm going to move off of that screen because it's going to show you, yeah, what you would see is it's going to come up. It's going to show you the group. It's going to show you the username, and that's why I'm hiding it from you right now, is I don't want you to see the username. And I have to type in the password, which echoes back to the screen, so I don't want to have to show you that. And let's get that done. And then I'm going to click connect. And now that that information is gone, I'm going to bring back, where did it go? There we go. I'll bring it back. And so now what do we see up in that upper left-hand corner? What is it that we see that's different, that's telling us, hey, you're connected? And I apologize there. I'm trying to get that out of the way. I want to move over here. Let me do this. Let me drag that out of the way. There we go. So I wanted to show you that right there. Here in the top left of the iPad screen, it says, it's a little small, but it's a box and it says VPN. It means that I'm VPN'd in. Okay, well now let's see what's different about me being VPN'd in. So let me iconify that. Let's pull this ping utility up. So I'm going to ping 192.168.1.254. Aha! Now it's working. Interesting, right? Well, it shouldn't be, because we knew that this would happen because the AnyConnect client treats me as if I am a member. And let's get rid of that. And let's. All right, so much better. So I'm actually on the correct firewall here, the ASA 5510. So let's go to monitoring. Let's go to VPN. Let's go to AnyConnect client, right? And here we are. And so take a look at the information here, right? We've got the username, we've got the profile being used, and there is the assigned IP address, which sits in that range we defined and is a 192.168.1.40. Take a look here. We've got some additional information. Boy, you can see AES 128, right? The DTLS tunnel information, and then the bytes sent and received. And so we're actively pinging here. You can see the login time, 4 minutes and 42 seconds. But again, it gives us the proof that I am now on the local network. I am a node on the local network, and the public IP that I'm coming from, take a look. That's not an inside IP, right? That 174, that is a Verizon 4G LTE acquired address that I'm getting because I'm going out with the iPad out that way. And so if you take a look here, you can see that the pings are still working internally. So let's stop the pings internally. Let's pull this up and let's say 8.8.8.8, and let's see if that's going to work. And what you're going to see is that's not going to function because, and this is one of those got-yous with the Cisco ASA when you're configuring the remote access, right, is that by default, it's not going to allow traffic to come in the outside interface via the VPN and then exit out the outside interface. Now, one of the methods we could use to solve this, and probably the easiest, is split tunneling, and that'll be covered in the errata. So the final module is going to be port forwarding and the errata. So we've proved that we're on the inside network. We've also proven that, and let me go ahead and do stop. So let's check this out. Remember, we've got that router 172. Let's see if I can ping 172.16.1.10. Is that going to work? And it's not. And this could be because I put some, or did we do the default? I'm trying to remember if I did the default. No, actually on my net, I'm sorry, because I'm confusing again the firewalls. So that is not here. This is on the ASA 5505. So we can stop that right now. Again, I apologize. Got confused between the demo 5505 and my 5510. So we'll stop it right there in terms of this app, right? Now, the other thing is this AnyConnect client, right? Since I'm on the local network, I should be able to remote desktop into other nodes on my network. And so you can see we've got 4 different profiles here. Now, this one is when I'm at my house. If I'm, sitting out on the front porch or whatever, and I want to take a look at this iMac, this VNC profile references a 192.168 address. If I'm out on the road, it references the outside interface of the firewall, and it's doing port forwarding, right? That's how I'm doing it when I'm on the road. I'm not doing an AnyConnect and then looking at it, although I could. And so let's prove that. Or I'm sorry, we'll do it with this Zavio one here on the home network. If I click the I real quickly there, you can see what is the address it's going to try to connect to. Yeah, 192.168.1.169. So we'll click done. I'm going to click on the icon itself, and it's going to display back, and this is a Windows box I have here at my house, which is on that 192.168 network, right? And I happen to be looking at this IPv6 support for EIGRP named mode. So, but again, it gives me access to these local resources because, again, the key takeaway here is the AnyConnect client, when used, is going to place your node, right, your device, onto whatever local segment it is you configure it to be on, because we could have put it onto, we could have used another address range and associated it with maybe a VPN zone, right, and a VPN interface on the ASA, and then it goes into a switch, or, where you've got access into other things. But we've just put it on the inside network, right? So that's, not the end of the world. When you get into larger enterprise deployments, that's definitely a consideration. But here, yeah, I've got access to my local resources via that VNC client. I can ping the local resources. If I click on the LAN icon and click scan, right, it's going to go through and, oh, actually, I'm sorry, it's not looking at the internal network here. That's going to look at the Verizon connection I've got. So again, we've got connectivity to these local resources. And this is all that's required, right? That's all you need to do. So again, the split tunneling, we'll take care of that in the errata, the final module. The port forwarding, we're going to take care of that in the final module. And again, how do I kill, oops, sorry, stop that. How do I kill the VPN when I want my iPad to, possibly if I'm in Buenos Aires or wherever I may be, if I want it to connect back to the Wi-Fi locally, I just simply turn this off. Because remember, this iPad is not going to have internet access unless it's through my home network, because that was where I was VPN'd in. All right, well, we talked about a lot here in this module, so let's review real briefly. We talked about the 2 different images that you need. And again, depending upon what type of deployment you're going to do with that AnyConnect client, because you got to deploy it, you got to configure it, you got to install it, right? And so how are you going to do that? Well, and interesting, you'll notice that the time, I just looked at that, I was looking up, and the time, it says 9:41. So it's even changed the time on the iPad, because it is not 9:41 here. If you look over to the top right, it's actually 2:27. So the time is all screwed up as well, because it's probably coming in, and I guess the time on the ASA is not right. So yeah, it looks like the time is incorrect. So anyway, so you've got two different packages. You've got a web deployment package and a pre-deployment package. The web deployment is a PKG. That's what you install on your TFTP. You TFTP that onto your ASA. That's the image you select so that people who don't have it that are out there, or if maybe yours gets destroyed, you need to get it again, you can get it via the web page. Then you've got the pre-deployment package, which is a DMG, which you saw that I had installed on that old MacBook. Then the configuration section, everything that you would configure that I've done here on this ASA 5510, it's the exact same steps that I did on the 5505, right? You go in, you create your pool, you create your group, you have your users defined, and that's how you use the AnyConnect client to connect in. And then we saw that it is a node on the network. We saw via the monitoring that I get one of those IPs out of that range that we define when we set up the AnyConnect client connection on the ASA, right? We get a 192.168.1.40 address because that's in the range that I use on this 5510. And then we saw that I can't get out to the internet, right? Because that's a definite security consideration. And I know that in the majority of government environments I've been in is that, yeah, if you're allowed to VPN in, you are not going to be allowed to do split tunneling and have simultaneous VPN and unsecure internet connectivity on the same node at the same time. They're going to force you to either go through their central firewall, right? Or they're just not going to allow remote access at all. In fact, I've worked for some companies, and this is a true story, where you open the laptop up and it auto-magically connects back to the corporate VPN, and that is how you have to access things. And so you can't access anything on that laptop without going through the corporate network. And that's pretty frustrating, because then they've got all kinds of web filtering going on, and you're trying to get to something at Cisco and it doesn't like it, so it blocks it. So it just makes it really difficult. But again, now you know how to do the AnyConnect client, you know how to get the AnyConnect client, you know how to get the app, you know how to put it on your iPhone and your iPad, you know how to connect back to the outside IP address on that ASA firewall on your network. All right, well, this is going to wrap up Module 10. The final module later tonight is going to be the errata module. We're going to talk about port forwarding and split tunneling, and then that is going to wrap up this series on basic configuration tasks for your ASA. All right, well, thank you so much for watching again. Really appreciate your time and your feedback. Have a great afternoon.